think of what life you have and what life the people in Gaza have, because I know that I'm going to go home to a warm house and a cupboard full of food. I know that I don't want for anything, and I'm going to sit and look at children, child amputees, children that have been burned, mothers sending their children out not knowing if they're going to come back, fathers grieving that they can't feed their families. I watch all that, and sometimes I just feel so helpless. So I just do everything I can, and to me it's never enough, and I just wish I could do more.
Maire Mhic is from the Polyglass area of West Belfast, whose activism stretches back to her involvement in the civil rights movement in the north of Ireland. In recent years, she has become one of the most recognizable faces of Palestine solidarity activism in Northern Ireland, and she was held for wearing a T-shirt reading "We Are All Palestine Action." In this interview, we are going to talk with her about the situation in the occupied Palestinian territory from her perspective as a person interested in Palestine and the rights of the Palestinian people. Welcome to our program, Maire.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah. Maire, many people say that Maire is always on the line, okay? That you put yourself at risk while protesting for the rights of the Palestinian people. Why you do that?
Because I come from a country that has a history of oppression. I come from a country that has a history of colonialism. I come from a country that has a history of brutality by an occupying army. So I understand exactly what's happening in Palestine. And I have followed with sorrow, with interest, the history of the Palestinian people. And it is very, very dear to me, because I see what's happening in Palestine as being very much linked to the history of my own country's colonialism and my own country's oppression.
Yes,
and
Maire,
my country's right for freedom.
Yeah. Before you became active for the Palestinian people's rights and against the Israeli colonial regime and its injustices and oppression against the Palestinians, you were active at the civil rights movement in Ireland. Can you tell us about your experience at that time and how you compare it to what you are doing now?
Well, I come from a family. My mother and father were in prison in the 1940s, and my mother was on hunger strike. And my great-great-uncles were fighting in the 19th century for land rights and for ownership of land, and to get the foreign landlords out of the country. So I come from a background of people who have always fought for independence, for justice. So when I was very young, I joined the civil rights movement. I also became a member of the Irish Republican movement, and I joined the civil rights movement whenever it was being very much attacked, very much beaten up the streets by the police. Mm-hmm. The more we marched, the worse the pro-British side of the community here, of the establishment, the more they brutalised us. And because we live in a police state, and we had a law called the Special Powers Act, which was a very oppressive legislation, so we were fighting for equal rights, equal education rights, equal voting rights. Women didn't have votes in the north of Ireland until the 1970s. So we were fighting for a lot of social uplift, economic uplift, rights and freedom. And it started with the civil rights movement because of the discrimination in education, the discrimination in housing, and how we were second-class citizens in our own country, and the oppression of our language as well.
Yeah, and the experience of Ireland is very much similar to that of the Palestinian experience in terms of the Palestinian suffering, the Palestinians facing the Israeli colonialism, the Palestinians' displacement and their expulsion from their homeland, the famine, the starvation that Gaza has been going through. So how this situation in Palestine reminds you of the years ago of Ireland?
Yes, well, I was brought up with a very strong sense of my own identity, but also a very strong sense of my own nation's suffering. So even way back in the 1600s, they tried to remove the Irish people totally off the land, and, you know, thousands and thousands were rounded up and they were sent to the American colonies. They were sent to what they were called the Sugar Islands, Jamaica, you know, that part of South America, and they tried to annihilate the Irish people. In every single century, there was a planned annihilation of the Irish people. In the 1600s, the 1700s, right through to, it wasn't a famine. There was plenty of food in Ireland. There's no famine in Israeli-occupied Palestine. There's plenty of food in Palestine. There's plenty of food, but it's not going to the people in Gaza. And even the people in the West Bank, we're now seeing the destruction, we're seeing the evictions, we're seeing those young boys going out and beating up people in their own homes in the West Bank, the destruction of your beautiful olive trees. We're watching all that because we know that that's part of our history, the annihilation of one entire nation to take their land and to put the Indigenous people out of it. It's our history and it's your history, and I feel very, very strongly against that injustice. And I've fought in my own country. I will always fight for my own country, but I will always fight for the Palestinian people too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and Mary, we know that the people of Ireland were victorious. They were able to resist the oppression imposed on them. They were able to resist the famine, the starvation, the policy of expulsion. As you mentioned, many of them were expelled to the American colonies. So what do you think of the Palestinian situation? Do you think that one day the Palestinian people will liberate their homeland and defeat the Israeli colonial regime?
I would love to see the Israeli regime. I would love to see a full Palestine. I'm not a believer in a two-state solution. That is the Palestinian land. That's the land of the Palestinian people. The dust of the earth is the dust of your ancestors. That land belongs to Palestine. And I would love to see a Palestinian state. And I know that Catholics and Muslims and Judea and all people lived in Palestine until the Zionists came. And it's the Zionist occupation. I think Zionism is the most evil thing I've ever seen in my lifetime. What I've been watching, the treatment of prisoners.
Yeah. And do you think that the Zionist regime is going to be defeated?
If you're asking me if I want them defeated, yes. If I think they'll be defeated, I don't know. I'm intelligent enough to know that you follow the money. You know, will the Zionists be defeated? I just don't think the Palestinians will give up their land. I just don't think they will. There's only two options here. The Zionists will be defeated, or they'll wipe out every last woman and child in Palestine, in Gaza.
Yes.
I think they want to push the people of Gaza right into the sea, and they don't care, and the world's watching and the world's doing nothing about it. But I absolutely believe that the Zionists want the total annihilation of everybody in Gaza. And I believe that the Palestinian people have that in them to defeat the Zionists. I believe they have it in them.
Yes, and Mary, while you were taking part in one of the protests in support of the Palestinian people, you were arrested for wearing a T-shirt. May you tell us about that story?
Right. Well, there's an organization over here called Palestine Action. And what they do is they go into the weaponry factories and they destroy components of the weapons that are used in the genocide. You know, they're used in the bombs that are dropping the bombs on the Palestinian people. And they have destroyed these weaponry, and this organization has now been designated as a terrorist organization. It is not a terrorist organization, and they have appealed it in court, right? It won the first time. The second time they said, yes, it's to destroy weaponry, to throw paint on airplanes. That creates a national security system, so you are terrorists. So this has lost so far in the courts, but it's now in the Supreme Court in England, Scotland and Wales. The situation over here is different because since there's been a peace process and the violence of the war that we had with the British is now stopped, and when it's now working through as a peace process, organisations that were designated as terrorists, such as the UVF, the UEFF, the IRA, they are prescribed organisations, as Palestine-A is a prescribed organisation.
Yeah, and
the nature of the troubles here, Osama, the nature of the troubles here is that the police will not arrest anybody for wearing a T-shirt that says that you belong to the IRA, the UVF, any of these organisations that are prescribed. The police no longer will arrest you for it in order that it doesn't start more trouble. It doesn't resurrect the war. So anyone who shows support for any organisation on either side of my community, the police are not policing it. So I can wear a T-shirt that says IRA on it and nobody's going to touch me. I wear a T-shirt that says Palestine Action on it. I'm doing 5 to 15 years in prison. So when I went into the court to challenge this law, I had a T-shirt with Palestine Action on the front and IRA on the back to show that which one of these am I going to do 5 to 15 years for?
Yeah,
and so I was making a point of two-tier policing.
Yes, you were also detained several times because you insist in speaking the Irish language. Tell me why you insist on speaking the Irish language and how we can connect that to the people who are facing the danger of being expelled from their homeland and to have their culture and their history wiped off.
Well, when I was arrested, in law, in European law, when I was arrested, I gave my name in Irish because the Irish language has always been a point of destruction with the British. The British have done everything to outlaw the Irish language, but with the rise of the Republican movement and the prisoners and the small group of people that kept the Irish language alive, there was a big revival of the Irish language, and thousands of people in Belfast, all across Ireland, are now looking to the language again to speak it. So. Yes. Whenever there was a peace process, one of the things the British government promised was an Irish Language Act. But the pro-colonialists in this country, they did everything to block the Irish Language Act. Eventually we got one, but it was pretty watered down compared to the Language Act that we should have got. But we got certain rights to speak our language. And I think it's very important that when you fight for a right, that you exercise that right at all times. Don't fight for something that you don't want, fight for something that you're going to use. So I gave my name in Irish. Now, because the police officer had no interpreter for the language, he only spoke English, he said, you have to speak in English, which I don't. Legally, I have a right to speak my own language, so I insisted on speaking Irish. Now, instead of saying, well, you're obstructing the police, he escalated that immediately into terrorist offence. In other words, you speak Irish, you're a terrorist. It could have arrested me for obstruction, which is what would have been normal, but he didn't. And then the second time, wearing the T-shirt again, I was asked my name and address. Again, I provided it in Irish. And again, I was charged under terrorism. Not obstruction, which it should have been. I was charged under terrorism. And because of that, I said, every time I wear this T-shirt, I speak Irish. I'll not speak to you in English. And you can arrest me as much as you want.
Yes.
And I will always support the Palestine Action as well.
Yeah, and my final point, my final question to you, what would you say to the younger activists who are watching people of your age taking the risk and insisting on continuing the struggle for justice, freedom, and humanity? Well, I'm getting just quite well known for being very straightforward, very, very militant, very, very angry about what's happening in Palestine. And
a lot of people are now saying you're a legend, you know, and all this, but I don't consider myself to be a legend. I'm just doing what I'm right. And I just believe, I have a big family, 7 children, lead by example. Just do what you think's the right thing. Stay your ground, and if you think something's unjust, be prepared to take the consequences, because you don't ever want to walk away wishing, I wish I'd said this, or wish I'd done that. So personally, I think just lead by example, and if anybody asks you what you're doing or why you're doing it, be honest and truthful. But I wouldn't impose what I do on other people. I say I cannot back down, but whatever you need to do it. And everybody doesn't have to be militant like me. They don't have to be continually active. You can raise funds. You can bring up what's happening in Palestine with your friends. You can do a lot of things for the people in Palestine. You can work with immigrants. You can do a lot of things for the Palestinian people. So I would say to young people, do the very best you can. Follow your heart, follow your conscience, and do the best you can. You don't have to go to prison for anything. You don't have to block the roads if you don't want to, but do what you know is right, and think of what life you have and what life the people in Gaza have, because I know that I'm going to go home to a warm house and a cupboard full of food. I know that I don't want for anything, and I'm going to sit and look at children, child amputees, children that have been burnt, mothers sending their children out not knowing if they're going to come back, fathers grieving that they can't feed their families. I watch all that, and sometimes I just feel so helpless. So I just do everything I can, and to me it's never enough, and I just wish I could do more.
Yeah, and last 2 words, Mary. How we say Free Palestine in Irish language?
Saoirse Dom Palestine. Thank
you very much. It has been a great honor having you in this program. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. Saoirse Dom Palestine, Saoirse na Heron, freedom for Ireland, freedom for Palestine.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching, and from you, Simon Azal, have a nice time.